I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Welcome.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Linda's Adventures Council of Thieves, Part 6 of 7.
That's right.
In which we wrap up what happened during Part 5 of the campaign and get into some of the things that happened in Part 6. We'll be having Part 7 again very shortly. I believe that's going to be our next episode. So
That's right. That will be the next episode, and that will be the denouement of the entire campaign.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So, when last we left our heroes, first of all, we should probably start with a quick recap of who our heroes are.
Yes, we always want to remind people who our heroes are. So, we had a bunch of heroes that were in the campaign. There was my character, Alicia, a.k.a. Angel, the vigilante before there was a vigilante, somewhat, who was a tiefling summoner who has an alter ego that's a human, who's kind of just like a human singer slash arena fighter who does not summon, although won a summoning battle, surprising everyone and making us a lot of money on the bets.
She's also by this point in the campaign been positioned to be more of a leadership figure within the Children of West Crown.
Yes. She convinced our group, which we called the Blades of Eridan instead of the Children of West Crown, convinced everyone that since our real leader had been captured by Hell Knights before and was under suspicion, that he should stay under the radar and just be our real leader from under the radar, and if we ever needed somebody to go out in public and pretend to be our leader, that she could be the figurehead for the organization. But this was also part of an attempt to seize actual power from the real leader, who was a racist.
Yeah. So Alicia was also the figurehead leader, the figurehead, and also more and more the actual
and
leader.
Angel was the figurehead,
yes.
not Alicia. Alicia wouldn't be the leader.
Alicia being the tiefling identity, and Angel being the human identity, was the leader of the Blades of Eridan, as our group called the Children of West Crown.
That's right.
And the PCs sort of so through that, then the PCs were able to take more of an active role, because Angel wasn't the type to be like, oh, and I'm just gonna go against what the other PCs want. Angel was
the PCs were mostly deciding a lot of things anyway.
Yeah.
Whether or not Angel was being the figurehead, the main thing is that she just was not really a big fan of Ariel, the racist against tieflings.
So, other party members include the Master of Security for the Blades of Eridan, Red Black, the half-elf rogue.
Half-elf rogue from Galt.
From Galt, whose real name even I, as the GM, never learned.
Yep.
Because he only ever went by his code name.
I mean, presumably Thunder, the other Galton security expert who the Council of Thieves had hired, knows
his actual name,
because didn't you say she whispered his real name into his ear?
She did whisper his real name to his ear.
But you didn't know what it was.
I didn't know what it was. It was like, oh my gosh, she knows my real name, because Thunder, the Galton security expert who worked for the Council of Thieves, was part of sort of the same general spy training that Red Black was. But out of respect, they never used each other's real names out loud, even though they knew them.
Mm-hmm.
We also had perpetual commentator on moments of social awkwardness.
Awkward.
And that, I don't know why that character's catchphrase just became a part of our group after that point, but it did.
It did. And Crunkfree also was a gardener, and often found things to be awkward.
Crunkfree was generally going around and trying to find ways to help people, as you might imagine,
cleaning things.
Paladin of Sugar. Paladin of Shellin. I can
Paladin
speak, I
Sugar.
Swear. I can
cleaning
speak.
things kind of like in a Lady Macbeth style, especially if he was feeling guilty.
That was also a meme about that character.
Yep.
Carl, the gnome sorcerer and cobbler, who was
It's a Fey bloodline, but it was pretty
bloodline,
obvious it was a red cap bloodline,
yeah.
since he would just knock things out and then coup de grace them with some kind of giant weapon for his gnomish stature.
And while the party as a whole had more of a good and lawful bent, Carl is very clearly a chaotic neutral character who I would say occasionally pushed those boundaries of I'm chaotic neutral, and we had to have that discussion of
never against the party, just the things that he would do on our behalf were not always things that we all appreciated.
We had to have conversations about I'm really not comfortable with your PC torturing people.
Yep.
But so yeah, that was definitely one of those I'm chaotic neutral characters, but
he was not just a one-dimensional chaotic neutral character
no, he
either,
definitely
because
wasn't.
he's also was a cobbler and making shoes for people, and he was very connected to his mom.
Yeah, he also had a strong sense of justice and wanting to bring more fairness to
the people
to the way that people were treated, wanting to help people particularly in the slums to overcome some of the injustices and oppression of the current status of society in the Chelish state.
And he would do anything for his mother, but the thing about doing anything for certain categories, such as overcoming oppression, is why he was chaotic neutral.
Yep.
Which was, not chaotic evil.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And we also had our other party member, which was Stav, the elven paladin of, at this point, by this point, Sarenrae. Had originally been of Torag. Stav was a very friendly and easygoing type character. Really liked being the life of the party and sort of the kind of person who'd go around cheering people up and helping them in that way.
Yep. And inviting people out to dinner.
Inviting people out to dinner a lot. Did a lot of inviting people out to dinner. Went on a lot of dates. But Stav, I think too was a very interesting character to have in the party, because Stav was sort of the one. Stav was very much a foil to Red Black, because Red Black's always you need to be serious and take this seriously and all these kinds of things, and Stav is just just relax.
Stav also showed that a paladin doesn't have to be sort of as obsessive about cleaning or things as Crunkfree, who is very lawful. Stav was still lawful, but he was not as into that kind of thing. He was more into the good part.
Yeah.
And then there's Lainey Axis, our other paladin.
Yes, the NPC tiefling paladin of Shellen, actress, who'd been introduced in the beginning as a way to sort of get us to be able to move some things forward, as you'll see in the first episode from this. And she was generally a useful character to have around. She's very I played her as being very supportive of the PCs, and more being the nudge to help sometimes whenever there was some trouble with trying to justify how one part of the adventure would connect to the next. But she really did feel like a part of the party. So that was what we had as our group. By this point, Soren, the human oracle bard, our shortest lived and shortest participating party member, had perished.
Didn't Lorena only participate for the first session?
No, you're right. Lorena was only in one session. Soren was in multiple sessions. Lorena as player, though, moved over to play Red Black after that.
Yes, but the character...
Lorena was only there for one section. Lorena, the
cleric of Shellen, who was scarred for life by the first session of the campaign.
Just like Laren and Elena and whatever, this player kept bringing clerics of Shellen.
Ilana, Laren, and Elena.
That's right. Clerics of Shellen with the same build who would come in.
And there would be sisters with very similar
sounding names and personalities.
Yep.
Yeah. It's funny because this is also the player who would just bring in a lot of different characters in Kingmaker. So it's not like he only liked playing one type of character. I think he really liked this character and was looking for a place
Linda. The characters he brought in Kingmaker were NPCs you had already built.
That's true.
He did not want to build a character.
That's what it was.
He probably would have enjoyed character building in Pathfinder 2nd Edition more, but he just felt like it was very onerous to build a character. So he loved playing characters with different personalities, but it was not worth it to him to build another character.
That's what it was. Thank you. It's been a while.
That's why. And so therefore,
Mark,
he
how
just
has it
made
been
the
like
same
a
one.
decade since I ran this campaign?
The magic of the movies.
The magic of the movies.
The magic of the movies makes it seem like it's been a decade when it has in fact been a decade.
Which it has been. Anyway, so that's our party, and
we had just
we were doing part 5, but we were doing it in an inverted order. So
just because once the PCs had the artifact that we needed to take down Ilnric Sivinchin, the vampire who had brought the Shadow Beast on the city, which like our main reason of gathering the group was to take down the Shadow Beasts.
Mm-hmm.
So we immediately wanted to do that, but then part 4 happened with explosions, and we had to do part 4. Then as soon as that was over, we hunted down Ilnric, who is supposed to be the end of part 5, because we're supposed to want to take some like minor possibility of getting some information on the Council of Thieves over hunting down Ilnric, and Linda's like, there's no way they're going to do that. Which is true, because we still didn't care about the Council as much as Ilnric, even though they had just caused that giant fire explosion, because Ilnric had caused all the Shadow Beasts that were there for years. However, there was one thing that happened before we went into more adventures after that, which was that after Ilnric was defeated, we declared victory against the Shadow Beasts, just in public. And the way we did that was that Angel just said that we were having a concert. And by this point in time, we have so many rods of splendor that I was using a rod of splendor, which gives +4 to charisma as a slotless item, and also using an intelligence headband that had perform sing. So I went from just kind of like singing in bars with high charisma from being a summoner and having no performance skill, but you know, like whatever, when people are singing karaoke style at bars, then it's not gonna be great anyway, or karaoke.
We had a little scene to acknowledge this. We had a little scene to acknowledge this too, where we had the we had a conversation where someone comes up to Angel, it's like, "Wow, how did you learn to be such a good singer?"
Oh, that was when I got an honorary doctorate at the Bard College, and then I had to give a speech about learning how to perform.
Yeah.
And not just say the answer is to buy a magic item, and then 24 hours later you gain like 12 ranks in perform. But that was how I became a great singer. Angel gave a concert in which she disguised her Eidolon as just sort of like a flying unicorn instead of a flying cat. To just look like it was a set piece to part of the singing, and just sort of riding around on a flying unicorn and singing, but then also just announced the Shadow Beasts have been defeated, and I am the leader of the Blades of Aridin, who, because up until that point we had been secretive. The AP sort of switches back and forth between assuming that your identities are secret and that everybody knows what they are, just like every few sections of even of the same book, it may change again to be like, since nobody knows who they are, or since everyone knows they're in the Children of West Crown, but we had been going with nobody knew. Yeah. And so this was I was still the only person who had revealed that I was in the organization, and in fact I still revealed it under a false identity that was concocted.
But this definitely caused there to be a target on the head of your false identity.
That's correct. Sure. I knew there was going to be a target on the head of my false identity, but people needed hope, and they needed to know that the Shadow Beasts were gone. And so there was this giant crowd, and people were very happy. But that's when we started kicking it towards Endgame, which we did with actually the beginning of Book 5.
Back to the beginning of Book 5, yes.
Because now that Angel had sort of like revealed herself, an information broker who thought that they had a lot of information on the Council of Thieves, the other remaining threat that we had not dealt with, since they were not as bad as the Shadow Beasts, according to us,
came to you guys and said, "Hey, you know, I have a contact who claimed to have important information about the coup that's going on in the Council of Thieves and all these problems, and like I was gonna have this great information, but then when I went to talk to him, then I promised him funds to help him escape, in return for telling me everything that he knew. And then when I went to go find him, he was gone, and I had got no contact from him, and like, this is bad.
Yep.
So please try to figure out what happened. I know generally where he was. So if you can pick up the trail, you guys are awesome.
So we decided we did want to get that special information from the contact. So we cautiously, because if the contact was missing, there could be some kind of a trap waiting for anyone who tried to find the contact. And Red Black was like, this is an obvious chance for a setup. Everyone prepare.
And Red Black's talking to this guy too, because like this guy Jarvis is from Galt too, and so they were having like this conversation about, it's like, well, why should I possibly trust this or whatever, and during that conversation they determined that both of them were from Galt. Mm-hmm. And Jarvis was able to at least somewhat convince Red Black that he had enough caution based on his experience in Galt that he wasn't just going to lead them into a terrible trap, but that the PCs should still definitely be careful because it could be a trap, but he wasn't trying to mess with them.
Mm-hmm. So we decided to go and assume that it was a trap. When we got there, much to our non-surprise...
And Jarvis actually offered to go with you guys, but then you guys were like, no.
No, it's probably a trap, Jarvis.
It's probably a trap.
When we got there, it was a trap.
Yes, it was a trap. So unsurprising to anyone, the PCs got ambushed by...
I mean, maybe of the people who were watching it, at least one person was surprised that we got ambushed.
I mean,
maybe thought we were too paranoid.
Yeah, maybe, that's true. I'm surprising to anyone in the party.
Yes.
The PCs...
We knew Linda would always ambush us.
The PCs got ambushed by... some enforcers from the Council of Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Maglin, the assassin, the council Hushman, and Kruth the Hammer, and a bunch of standard issue thieves in their standard issue
+1 studded leather armor. But also their standard issue necklace of fireballs, so that they could set off chain reactions of blowing things up.
I don't think that was in the AP. I think I added that.
I think it might have been in the AP.
Was it in this one?
I don't know, but I remember you did that. I'll scroll down. Maybe it's in the AP.
You could also just
look this.
Oh yes, that's right. We did. That was in the AP. They had a bunch of globes of fireballs. Necklace of fireballs.
I mean, that definitely sounds like something you would have added, but it actually was.
That was in the AP. You're right. I just didn't see it in this.
Yeah, when you were looking at it today, I was surprised to find that they actually had it in the AP because it seemed like something you would do.
Yeah, no, it is the kind of thing that I would do.
You were so convinced that you were like, oh, that probably wasn't.
Yeah, well, our group, like as a whole, does Necklace of Fireballs shenanigans all the time.
Yeah, but how do you know that that Cedric added it? Maybe that was also in the AP.
Maybe it's more of a Paizo thing and not so much.
Yeah, maybe Paizo just puts it into things.
But if you have a necklace of fireballs, like, it's basically a giant explosive waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely used that strategy of, like, they've got siege engines in this place. Let's put a necklace of fireballs here. Then have like an invisible familiar fly overhead, drop one of the globes of the necklace of fireballs to set the rest of it off and explode all of their siege engines. I
mean, that wasn't as bad as no, that's not what we did to those siege engines. It was much worse than a necklace of fireballs. The thing that what we did to those people.
Oh, no, we used their own bombs, didn't we?
They created some kind of mega bomb munitions, and then you carried them over them, and then dropped them on them, and then you created a crater that was just like a massive radius, and every hobgoblin was vaporized.
That's right. What if we just set up with a necklace of fireballs then?
Oh, several other things.
We just use explosives a lot in Iron Fang, but that's not the campaign that we're intending to talk about here. When you're 6 people and your job is to defend an entire city from an invading army,
you might turn the fallen enemies into stone with gorgons to reinforce the walls.
You might.
That is what happened one week that Linda and I missed the session, and we came back and they're like, yeah, we did this.
And then people were like, oh, sorry, like, would your character have objected? And it's like, my character's a Leshy. You make my character's like, why? It's like, yes, the bodies of the fallen are often used to make buildings.
Like
you call
wood.
It lumber.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't see why I would object to this.
Yep.
Anyway, that's neither here nor
Different
there.
campaign. So yeah, we were mega ambushed by a giant ambush. Fortunately for us, due to the fact that the ambush was a very extensive ambush, we probably would have been fine anyway, but fighting that many crappy enemies is not as good for paladins, and we had paladins. But thankfully, we actually had some allies in this ambush who were ambushing the ambushers.
So the ambushers of the ambushers were in fact a red cap, a red cap led attack. So greetings. So Dog's Tongue, the male red cap, came in to assist the PCs in their attack. And this was, I think, the point in time when Carl is like, "Oh yeah, now I see why you're always comparing me to a red cap."
Yep, because the red caps have fancy boots and this giant oversized weapon that
weapon.
The player, I think, didn't really know about red caps.
Yeah.
Until that
happened, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this guy's legit."
Because up until then, he wasn't sure. He's like, "I'm Faye Bloodline. I don't know what I am." And I was like, "You're probably a red cap." He's like, "I don't know what that is." But then he's like, "Yeah, this guy's legit. I probably am red cap blooded. Like it's completely similar to my entire character, even though I made it by accident to be similar." And we took down the council ambush. Unfortunately, we discovered that the informant had been not only killed, but
also had his jaw removed so that he couldn't speak with dead.
And several other.
They used they used quieting needles, which were a thing to stop him from being raised deaded.
Yep, several really annoying techniques to prevent him from talking.
I don't know, and I don't think you actually tried to resurrect him. But if you did, then
I think Red Black noticed that there were these needles in his body that were gonna kill him again if he got raised.
Yeah, but even if you
would need to use resurrect.
Yeah, so even if you try to resurrect him, he's like, "No, I'm not coming back."
Oh, he's just been too.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not gonna deal with what else the Council of Thieves has in store for me. I'm gonna stay in the afterlife. Thank you very much.
All right.
You didn't actually try that, I don't think, but that was a provision.
We did not try that.
So
the AP really didn't want us to get this guy's information.
No, they really didn't. So they took proper precautions.
Thankfully, the Red Cap said that his mistress, the Mother of Flies, who we all knew was a horrifically evil hag living in the nearby woods, actually also didn't like the Council of Thieves and had some information for us.
I don't necessarily I mean, like, the Dog's Tongue the Red Cap didn't necessarily like you guys, but it's very much a sort of like, well, we don't like the Council of Thieves, they don't like the Council of Thieves, the opportunistic let's work together type thing.
He also seemed to respect Carl.
He respected Carl. He respected, I think that when he approached you guys, he was just like, yeah, whatever. But then he saw, like, Carl being bloodthirsty on battle with, like, his awesome boots and his scythe.
Oversized. It was a war axe for Carl, but still, that's
I don't know why.
I
think I keep remembering it as a scythe because, like, Carl still has a scythe in my head, even though I know, like, on his character sheet it says war axe
because of his red cap nature.
But his oversized weapon and his awesome shoes and his bloodthirsty nature, the Red Cap's just like, oh yeah, you guys are legit. I think he wound up talking to Carl primarily because he's like, Carl, regardless of what you may say about who the leader is, Carl should be the leader. Carl is the most
Red Cap
reasonable person in this entire group.
Yep.
So they had a good conversation there, and the PCs agreed to go out into the Hagwood at least to talk to the Mother of Flies.
Because the Red Cap convinced us that the Council of Thieves was waging war against the Mother of Flies. And if that was true, that they were committing resources to doing that, then we might as well find out what's going on. If anything, we can, if they're trying to get something that will strengthen them, we can at least stop them from getting it. And if necessary, we could destroy the Council of Thieves and the Mother of Flies, whether we can, but we needed to find out more what was going on in that situation.
So at that point, the PCs headed across the river and into the Hagwood.
Dun dun dun. The Hagwood.
So,
there was a lot of stuff going on here.
There was a group of humans and Caligny and giants that had come in and were going into the Hagwood. surrounding the mother flies' base of operations, the maggot tree, but they were not able to. They were, but as of yet, they had proven unable to break through those defenses.
When it started out, though, we didn't find that many of the council mooks, but there were a lot of weird phase stuff because
Yes.
the red cap brought us back to some of the other red caps, and there was like some powerful satyr like guy.
The powerful satyr. Yeah, there is a powerful satyr barbarian.
That's what it was. The
Yeah,
satyr barbarian who dueled in a one-on-one.
Yeah. He insisted upon doing a one-on-one duel with you guys.
Mm-hmm. And it was like, he's a satyr, but he's also a barbarian with a giant axe.
Yes. And they had that group had kicked Dog's Tongue out for being someone who was willing to talk to humans, and by proving that one of their number could defeat Magi. And who did you send? Carl, I think.
I think Carl.
I think you sent Carl to duel him. Because you're pretty sure it was Carl. Yeah, it was Axe versus Axe there. Axe and spell, so to speak. Because he was actually a sorcerer despite his giant axe.
That's true.
So yeah, they had a duel
and
there.
Satyrs still have an okay amount of magic, although with Barbarian they're not gonna be able to use it.
Yeah, and when Carl won that duel, then the group agreed, like, okay, yes, Magi has been defeated. Then by virtue that Dog's Tongue was not a fool. The humans that Dog's Tongue and others that Dog's Tongue was aligned with were like actually legit. And this Carl guy, yeah, like the other Redcaps respected this Carl guy too.
Because he beat Magi, and Magi had like a lot of barbarian levels.
Magi did have a lot of barbarian levels.
Like an amount that you would think he should not have because they were unassociated class levels.
So
back in Pathfinder 1st.
Yeah, I mean, between that and the number of hit dice that Faye have. Like,
yep. How many hit dice overall did he have?
If I didn't adjust him, he would have had 14 hit dice.
I think you probably made him even more powerful.
I probably made him more powerful than that.
And that is assumed to be a CR 10.
Yeah.
Yep. So that happened while we were there. There was also like several other weird set phase situations, like when we wound up getting into a situation with a bunch of Jenkins.
The bunch of Jenkins in there, and the giant bombardier beetle, Death Gorger.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was just an enormous bombardier beetle that was friends with the Jenkins, and that is, I think, when we first learned as a group that Jenkins gremlins and some of the other creepy Fae speak Aklo.
Yes.
Because we were like, well, we could talk to them in Sylvan, and they did not know Sylvan.
They did not know Sylvan.
They knew Aklo.
Mm-hmm. But this group actually weirdly knew Terran.
They knew Terran as well? Well, because they usually have Undercommon.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think I gave them
Terran? Yeah, I think I gave them Aklo, though.
Okay.
Because that was kind of weird.
Terran is a little weird.
It's weird because it says here that they only have Terran listed, but I'm pretty sure that I have these guys speaking Aklo like in normal.
Terran is really
weird.
I don't know.
But yeah, so the PCs were able to deal with that. They were happy that they were Jenkins of that number and not Pugwampy of that number, because Pugwampy of that number would have been like.
This wouldn't have been the right environment for Pugwampy, though.
No, it wouldn't have really. So because they had originally, these Jenkins worked with the Mother Flies, but the Mother Flies hadn't been providing them support for a while, so they were more and more clustering around this giant beetle.
Right. So I knew about I very distinctly remember the giant beetle and the Jenkins, and also the barbarian satyr. Were there any other weird phase set pieces before we made it to the tree?
There was a general Council of Thieves group that was
because they were outside the tree.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, those are so unmemorable because they're all the same Council of Thieves mooks.
No, I don't see.
But I don't think there were. Those are the things I remember from the adventure.
I don't see any other heroes, and I don't see any notes that I added.
So we sort of made it through the council blockade, and then we were able to get to the weird tree of the mother flies.
The weird tree of the mother flies had a ton of these really gross egg implanting birds and giant
Was those
swarms of
rifts?
spiders. Rifts, yeah. And giant swarms of spiders and biting flies, and just generally super.
It was a very
pestilent.
dangerous area. That was part of what was keeping out the council members.
Mm-hmm. And the Council of Thieves also had a huge encampment there with a bunch of warhounds and ogres and giants and.
That was where their main group.
Where their main group was. So, do you remember how exactly you handled this approach with the siege going on? Did you just battle a ton of them?
I think we just took them all out.
Yeah, I think this was just a giant battle. But I don't really remember it as well as some of those other things. Yeah, I think
that basically we saw that there were a lot of council members, and then we took them down using our typical
strategy of like splitting their numbers
and then using Carl's AoEs to take down some of them. But the problem, of course, they had evasion.
Yes.
But, and then just attacking them with the best that we had.
So eventually, you were able to make it through the siege and make it up to the Mother of Floods.
Also, importantly,
herself here.
I'm pretty sure that we sneaked past the siege at first.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to negotiate with the Mother of Flies when she was in a position of weakness because she was still under siege.
You're right. You definitely did that. You definitely did that.
So we sneaked past the entire encampment and talked to the Mother of Flies.
It's like, well, you know...
Because otherwise it's like, oh, well, you know, you killed all these things that were attacking me, but...
I remember that now.
And she had this horrific tree with, like, this heart of the
maggot tree.
That was in the tree that was, like...
And she's just covered in, like, flies and things like that. She has this special pestilence bloodline.
And I think that you may have added
and
that...
And I added...
or it was in there that, like, she was... previously a part of a coven of 2 other members who were killed, and they would become back as witchfires so that she still had a coven.
She had a coven with witchfires. That's right.
I'm pretty sure you added that, although maybe in her backstory the coven members were already killed.
I don't remember.
Maybe that's why she was mad at certain people or something like that. But you decided they came back as witchfires.
Because then she could still have a coven, and then that would be more powers and abilities for her, and she could have access to those juicy coven pre-buffs. And other spells. So you guys were able to talk to the Mother of Flies at this point, and she definitely was trying to negotiate to get you guys to help her with this other issue of everybody who is attacking her. And you guys wanted information from her.
Yep. And also a promise that she would leave West Crown alone, which honestly she doesn't care about attacking West Crown that much, so she easily gave. Because she was exiled from, I think, the Court of Ether, which is a Fae court that is in, I want to say, Narvoth or Sekamina. And where it's sort of hanging upside down from the ceiling of this big drop down to the next level down, and I can never remember which one it is. They actually use Aether to build their buildings.
I think it's beneath and around Summer, but I moved it but I ultimately wound up moving some of it between, but to be more beneath the Stolen Lands.
Or it's beneath and around, but you just created an outpost.
Or I know it was an outpost, that's what it was.
You created an outpost. It's beneath Enderon, which is why it's close to Cheliax, but she was exiled from there and had a backstory with them and was not really had a beef with West Crown. So she was okay with not attacking West Crown and did the deal and told us some very disturbing information about the Council of Thieves, particularly Accordion, as we call him, or Acardrian, the brother of Chamonix who never appeared in public.
That his father had swallowed a gold coin gifted to him by the Lord of Flies to make an infernal pact with the Archdevil, and that caused a. And the idea was to create for Memo wanted to create a tie and a bond with the father, Side and I.
Vasinito.
Yes. Well, Side and I tried to do it.
Yeah.
And then But then like because when Sidonai vanished, then sort of this obligation, this debt, this burden passed to Akardrian and Chamity, who were now the ones who were leading a coup of the Council of Thieves, and they had like these strong ties to Mammon. In fact,
I thought that Vasinito was the father of Akardrian and Chamity, and that was Sidonai Vasinito's father?
I think he may have been, but
so he made a pact with Mammon that Vasinito had to eventually had to solve the coin, and then his son Akardrian became actually Mammon's son.
Yes.
Which he did not know, but he did know he was a tiefling.
Mm-hmm. And the idea was that the idea here was that if there was sort of this thing that was set up with the Akardrian and Chamity, that Chamity's soul was pulled tighter and tighter into this, and that if Akardrian ever succeeded in his goal to rule West Crown,
then at that point
Chamity's soul would be forfeited and sent to hell.
Because Sidonai made a pact to rule West Crown.
Yes.
And a soul was necessary. And so yes, even though she did not know, she was the sister.
Mm-hmm.
The two siblings are working together and took over their father, and they killed him before he could tell either of them, or especially Chamity, that her soul would be forfeit if the brother-sister team actually won and took over West Crown, and if Akardrian was in charge, her soul would immediately go down to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Mm-hmm. So this was an important fact for the PCs to know in terms of their discussions with Chamity later on, for sure. So you guys got these secrets. This was a point you could have found more about. You had a little bit of a funny conversation where she like is telling you about like, yes, there's the secret house of Walcourt, and there's this vampire, and his name is Ilnric Sivenshyn, and the PCs are like, yeah, we already got rid of him.
Yeah, we killed him.
Sort of as a lampshade to the fact that you're expected to go there first. So you guys found that information out about the Council of Thieves, and you got some, and the Mother of Flies gave you guys some treasure. But you guys actually wound up attacking her.
Did we?
Yeah, you did. It says yeah. But it may not have been exactly now. It may have been later that you came back to fight her because you thought she was too big of a threat. But I do know that you eventually fought her, and I don't remember exactly what triggered that.
Yeah, I can't remember now what.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been just that simply she was too big of a threat overall, and we had not agreed not to attack her. She had just agreed to leave West Crown alone, which we didn't know if she was going to keep up with it. But for now, we helped her fight off the forces of the Council of Thieves.
Mm-hmm. It may have been that after you helped her fight off those forces, and you were weakened, she decided to come after you because you guys were too big of a liability in some way. But I don't think so, because she wanted you to defeat the Council of Thieves. I think you guys probably were the ones who initiated that.
We may have found out more about some of her connections with Mammon, and that she had a plan that was, while it wasn't directly going after West Crown, we were going to like expand the woods or some really evil thing that we decided that we needed to stop her.
You did eventually backstab her.
No, that's right. I mean, it wasn't backstabbing. We didn't agree that we were never going to attack her.
She thought you were backstabbing her because she thought you had a deal.
We had a deal to take out the council.
That's true. But yeah, you did eventually
But the next thing that we did actually was that, I'm pretty sure was that Carl really wanted to take out the head. So he convinced everyone that we were going to sort of scribe buff teleport is the common parlance for it. But basically we were going to figure out where Akardrian was going to be, buff up, and then just warp in and attack him. So we did that.
Yep. So they totally scribe buff teleported Akardrian.
Is that on your list of things?
That may have...
No.
It may be back here, or this may have also been what I had planned, and then more stuff happened.
So we
so
completely did it.
Yeah, so at this point, yeah, you definitely Scribe-Off teleported the Akardrian, who is supposed to be the final boss.
Yes.
So I took a little bit to think about, like, how do I make sure that he doesn't just go down here without stopping him from doing this? And so the answer to that question was a bracelet of friends.
Yep.
So I equipped him with a bracelet of friends that he could use to call in Shamity. And he also had a powerful...
his Barb
Devil
guy,
who's
a cleric from the end. What was the name of that guy?
I can't remember the Barb Devil cleric's name. Well, we'll get to it.
He's a Barb Devil cleric of Mammon.
He used to call them in. So then my thought was
also somebody else.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Celestia.
Yeah, it was not.
And he had another minion that wasn't as quite as
one of the other ones that was from the normal encounter
one
with
of the
him
high-level
and
council
Tramity and that cleric, and there was one other high-level minion.
Yeah. But the point is that they jumped in and they ambushed that, and I was thinking, you know what? I'll have them have a way to call all of them in, and if they have a way to win this, then more things are going to be going on behind the scenes, but they will have taken him out.
We reached the point during that battle where it was quite clear that if the battle were to continue, one of the sides would be entirely wiped out, and the other side would take massive casualties, over 50% casualties. And neither group wanted that to happen, so everyone retreated.
I remember the player of Carl being like, I can't believe you allowed us to do that. It was like, if you won, then you won. But at this point...
The only reason we even got close is because Smite Evil is ridiculous.
But at this point, the Council of Thieves realized that, like, the PCs were, like, seriously, they needed to get rid of the PCs. And their leader was this angel person. So one of the Council of Thieves top operatives, Celeste the Arrhenius...
Celeste the Half-Arrhenius.
Yes. Celeste the Half-Arrhenius, mother of Mark's character.
Dun dun dun.
Mark's character did not realize that
if you've been paying attention to all the episodes and actually remember that Celeste is Alicia's mother when just the first time Linda said Celeste this episode, then bravo, that is quite some memory. But
yes, the Half-Arrhenius mother of Mark's character, who did not, by the way, realize that Angel was actually Alicia. Just knew that Angel was the leader of the Council of Thieves.
That's correct.
Captured Carl's mother, and then sent Carl a letter.
That didn't happen yet. They first tried to just assassinate Angel in a normal way.
Yes.
And that was also during book 6.
Right. They did the normal.
That was the other assassination attempt. Book 5 had ended.
Yes.
And with book 5 over, we got into some of these things that were...
Yeah, there was a regular assassination attempt, but I actually want to talk about this one too, because while it's not exactly in the order of exactly how things happen in the plot, it's sort of in the order of let's think about what was going on with this particular threat.
But we should probably frame book 6 before we just get into like one of the things that happened during book 6.
Okay,
right?
Fair enough.
So, having cleared up book 5, even attempted to assassinate the leaders of the Council of Thieves, they declared their endgame. And shockingly, for a group whose like entire organization was based upon like a deal with Mammon, one of the Lords of Hell, that caused this guy who was like half Mammon, all these devils, their endgame was total and utter chaos in the city, with all sorts of random attacks and chaotic destruction. Because their theory was they would pick up the pieces and be like, now we're in charge of the city, and even Thrun has to recognize that we're in charge of the city.
Because we're the only ones
who can bring
order
back after we brought chaos ourselves. So that was their endgame, and they unleashed it all. Just throughout West Crown. Everyone was like, yay, the Shadow Beasts have been defeated, but they had almost no time, because like that next day we went to the Mother Flies, and the day after that
there were fires breaking out everywhere in the city. There was just complete chaos.
All sorts of things. They put the Hell Knights, the ones that were not in the out of the city citadel, but they were in the inside house, whatever it was called, Tyrannic House, I think.
Yeah, Tyrannic House.
They put that under siege so the Hell Knights couldn't get out and try to stop the chaos, and they just they executed every one of their previously planned gambits at once. Now, we had one thing that we did, which was after the fight with Chamini and Cardrin and the others, we had seen Chamini several times up close and were able to use Ascending to her to be like, hey, guess what? If a Cardrin wins, your soul belongs to hell, according to a contract with Mammon.
Yeah.
And we actually managed to cause her to become somewhat concerned by this.
She was concerned by that. And so
here's why. Guess who we had UMD the Scroll of Sending? A Paladin.
Yep.
So the Paladin can't lie and was sending her Ascending about this.
Yes, and then she had been getting somewhat suspicious of the Cardrian as time had been going on, because the Cardrian had been getting more and more into this whole plot with Mammon and his obsession with his own power.
He was not just a tiefling, which he was a tiefling, but he was something else.
There was something else rising within him that was completely devoid of empathy, and she was getting pushed aside, and she was afraid of what he was becoming and what would happen.
So we had like fake outs that Red Black made of like body double that wasn't a person for Angel and other things, and they absolutely tried to assassinate that.
Yes.
But Linda, I shouldn't delay you anymore from saying your favorite part of their plan.
So my favorite part of their plan was, so Celeste kidnapped Carl's mom and captured her, and set up a mechanism where it was basically where she basically told Carl that come to this warehouse by yourself, tell no one. If I'm watching you, if I see you telling anyone or doing anything else, I'm going to finish executing this infernal contract and damn your mother's soul. So at this point, it's alright. I pull the player aside, because it's like, there's some things that are going on with Carl. Let's talk about this, and I don't tell the rest of the players what's happening. So we're like in a completely different room having this conversation. Carl goes and talks to her, and essentially she convinces Carl that the only way to save his mother's soul from damnation would be to first go to the Blades of Eridan base and assassinate Angel, and then leave West Crown and never come back again. So Carl signs an infernal contract, a contract in which he agrees to do these things, and if he doesn't, then
it was one of those contracts that's backed by Hell.
Yeah.
Where Hell's like, we'll back this contract between two mortals with the idea that someone's soul is forfeit if they don't do their end of the bargain to us, because that's only beneficial to us, because we get a soul if they don't do their contract.
So now one of the PCs is obligated to assassinate one of the other PCs and then leave the city in which the campaign takes place.
So, however, during a few days before that happened, which is another reason that it's confusing to jump into it, Carl was actually doing a lot of things that then got very derailed by this, because he had gone into the slums to organize a militia. He had gone and gathered them and done his own big speech among the slums people that the other people in the Blades of Eridan had helped back him up on that, where to try to convince them all to create a militia to assist us, and he had succeeded pretty much. But then, like, right after that is when he got pulled into that thing with Celeste. Now, fortunately, Red Black, with his very high perception and sense motive, noticed that something was
off with Carl. Well, no. He didn't just notice that something was off with Carl in general. He was giving one of his usual paranoid speeches. About how you can't trust anyone.
Every day
Red Black
gives everyone a paranoid speech, and he did not know anything about what Linda was saying. He was just reminding us, like, every day he gives a paranoid speech that says that you can't trust anyone because anyone could betray you, and that everyone has compromising information, that if it was discovered, they could be blackmailed to attack you. And Red Black then pointed to, like, a picture of Vasinito Drevenge and be like, even Vasinito Drevenge, the head of the Council of Thieves, was killed by his own children. And this just goes to show you that the person you trust the most is the one who's going to murder you, or something like that. And he was just giving that as a speech because he's like, this is the kind of thing I tell everyone every day to keep them up as high as possible on security.
So this was obviously close enough that I figured that Carl was gonna make a face.
Yep.
So, and Carl's bluff, while good, was definitely outstripped by Red Black's sense motive. So Red Black notices.
And then Red Black is like, also, he even said, after I give this speech, I look through all the members.
Yes.
He wasn't really thinking about the PCs. He's like, I look through all the members of the organization just to see if anybody seems guilty after I gave this speech. Because he also does that every day.
And then we do some secret rolls, and it's like, yeah, actually, Carl's got a look on his face like this is hitting too close to home.
And Red Black was like, Carl? But, yeah... It was really funny because I almost definitely would have been assassinated if it weren't for the fact that, like, unbeknownst to any of what had been going on, Red Black's player just decided that it was even more paranoid than his usual paranoid speeches in some ways.
I thought that you were recently likely to get assassinated and then brought back to life and then have all this stuff continue from here about what the hell just happened with Carl.
The thing is that Red Black's player had been like talking about Red Black being just like really shaken by what happened to Vasanito, and he had taken a picture from Walcourt and he had been just thinking about like security breaches and trust and things like that, and so he had just sort of been, this had been in the works, but it just came at exactly the right time to catch Carl before Carl could assassinate Angel.
Now, Carl had to do his best to assassinate Angel, but all of the PCs non-lethally attacking him, he was no match for that.
Yes, and he got tied up, and we eventually figured out what the terms of his infernal contract were, and we had to sort of just let him go to Absalom after the fighting was over.
Yes.
Yep.
So they were able to figure out a way around the terms of the infernal contract because he wasn't prohibited from talking about the specific. They were able to find a way to like weasel out allowing him to share information about the contract. I think part of it was like asking him questions and then watching his reaction because he couldn't technically answer them. Oh. But he could like make a face or whatever.
I think Thais is the extra person that they brought because she had already been brought in by Celeste.
That's right.
Thais, the succubus anti-paladin. Who named herself after Thais, Caden Callian's herald, and she was basically had like notches for every paladin she had killed
on her bow.
And so that's the reason why the enemies had a chance is because we were aura of justicing them, and they were aura of vengeancing us.
That's right.
And the aura of vengeance canceled the aura of justice because Thais had even more charisma than our unfairly high charisma paladin. And by unfairly high, I mean there's a weird thing tieflings could have that's a 1 in 100 chance that raises their charisma that she had.
Because we did random rolls on that, and both of the tieflings got pretty lucky.
Yep. She also had one of the ones that was roll twice, and one of the things she rolled was roll twice and keep both of them.
Yes.
So, yeah. Anyway, yes. So Linda had Celeste, my character's mom, planar bind a succubus anti-paladin with enough levels in anti-paladin that it gives aura vengeance.
I had to give her a magic item for her to be able to get enough hit dice for
Diony's Feather, which is the basis behind the Caller's Feather that is found in Summoner's Handbook that Linda wrote for Summoner's Handbook later on.
That was the basis behind that was that feather.
Because you needed like one extra hit dice.
So the idea is that this was a feather from the original like Queen of the Night candidate Irenaeus Celeste, the grandmother of...
Celeste Mother
Celeste Mother Dione, yes. Celeste Mother Dione, from whom Dione's feather came, was sort of like the Queen of the Night candidate Irenaeus, who was...
Originally served Aridin, but then lost all hope
and...
when Aridin died.
And fell and became a powerful Irenaeus.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was sort of this feather from, and that item did eventually go into, would eventually go into Elysiel's hands, but it would take a while still before they were able to find a way to deal with Celeste.
That's true.
Or even that Celeste was a member of the Council of Thieves or like anything. Like they didn't know that, the only one who knew that Celeste was doing anything with the Council of Thieves was Carl.
Yep. That's correct. Sort of. We knew there was somebody who, like, in this warehouse of people had, like, tortured and murdered a whole bunch of people. And we didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
But Carl knew that it was probably Celeste. Because Celeste was, like, their, sort of mastermind hit person with magic. Since they didn't really have someone like that. And Linda added her to their mix. Celeste and her Eidolon Anguish, or Annie for short, who was also a cat-like Eidolon, like my character's Eidolon. So there were a lot of things. Buildings were on fire. We had to rescue the Martis family again.
Yes.
From
You had to
from
rescue
other
You had to
issues.
rescue the Hell Knights
Yes.
and secure an alliance with them.
There was another thing we did that was even more important, which was we knew, based on that last fight where we almost possibly all died, or they might have all died, that there was one thing that we had to do first, which we needed to get rid of Thais, the succubus anti-paladin.
Yes.
We could not fight her and the council at the same time, or else it was too risky, because Aura of Justice is overpowered and unfair, and so is Aura of Vengeance, where she's adding like plus 12 to their AC and attack bonus, and then like 13 damage.
But as it turned out, Thais' deal allowed her to go do her succubus things whenever she wanted, pretty much, outside of the times when she was specifically needed, with the exception that she couldn't be doing them in Cheliax.
Yep. So we found out that something that didn't really surprise us, because our characters have been born in Cheliax and read Chalice propaganda that said, in Andoran, demons are just running wild everywhere. That's because they're so chaotic. Fortunately, in Cheliax, that doesn't happen because we're safe and lawful. So it wasn't super surprising to us, but it's like, oh, she's just in Andoran. It's like, well, I guess that's where demons go. So we found out she was in Andoran and where she was, and we decided that we were going to go and quickly gank the succubus paladin, succubus anti-paladin, because she probably didn't have a bracelet of friends from them. She was the one who would be bracelet of friend did.
No, she didn't, and she also didn't have like all of her gear on her, because you waited until she had like captured an Andoran, like a prominent Andoran politician, and was doing her succubus things with that prominent Andoran politician. So she didn't have all of her gear and things like that, and so they chose that moment to ambush and attack her.
Yeah, because she was also, I think, a flying archer.
She was also a flying
succubus
archer.
anti-paladin.
Yes.
It was a mess. She was still able to recover and start attacking us, but because of how much we were able to sort of gank her, she wasn't able to get up smites on against all of our paladins to cancel their charisma bonus that we all added, and the rogues you don't think do a lot of damage, and they don't always when they aren't unchained, but when they have an aura of justice up on them, and the player has just given up on taking feats and let the gnome sorcerer's player give him 2-weapon fighting, you're just gonna do a lot of damage with 2-weapon fighting. You're gonna hit because you had your charisma to attack. So there were just too many things that were all smiting her, and she could not stand up against it. So getting rid of her was one of the most important things that we did.
So you did eliminate her at this point as well. I think now we should probably wrap, because we do still have one more episode in this series.
We do. And we're going to have to talk about how we put zones over the city and all the other things we did. This is a great point to stop, because we had gotten rid of Thais, and things had happened with Carl, and it was really amping up into this sort of almost like a zone defense game of the city of West Crown that became the part of the AP that you rewrote the most and created your own version of. So why don't we do that for next time?
That sounds good.
That'll be part 7 of 7.
So let's say goodbye to YouTube here.
Bye, YouTube. See you next time.